What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
What kind of ignorant shit is that?
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
You idiot, you fool!
Hey, dummy!
This is the Ignorance is Blessed podcast.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Hey, idiots. I'm here with the incredible Buzzy Cohen, Jeopardy master. I feel like you're a master of everything. I didn't realize that when I was like, Jeopardy! And then you're like, also, I have an Audible original and I am a deadlift champion. You're amazing. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Thanks
for having me.
Of course. No, I was like, I've been thinking about this for a while because we had to reschedule and stuff. And I just am like, where do I even start with all of these cool things? And then I was like, how does he even have time?
Yeah.
So I guess let's just start with, I think there's probably a lot of people who are very fascinated by the Jeopardy thing.
Of course.
So I guess let's just talk about Jeopardy for a little bit, which
okay,
because why not?
It's great, yeah.
You went through you were like Tournament of Champions, you went on All Stars, you've done like so much of it. I don't even know where to start with questions other than like, was Jeopardy a thing that you always wanted to do, or was it like maybe just like a random?
A little bit of both. Like when I was a kid, I really wanted to go on the show, but I wanted to go on when I was an adult. I didn't want to do the teen tournament or college or anything.
Child's play. I'm going as a full grown.
Exactly. But then I kind of like forgot about it. I didn't do, there's Quiz Bowl, which is sort of like a trivia team thing in college, but I didn't do that in college. I never really went to like pub trivia or anything like that regularly.
Oh, wow.
But the way that I got back into Jeopardy was that my wife and I always hosted an Oscars party, and one year like our stream feed fell and I had to run to Target and get like bunny ears to the over air, and and so I had the bunny ears, so now I could watch ABC, and I started watching Jeopardy again, and they were like, hey, take the online test in a month or whatever, and I just signed up and just took it kind of on a whim.
Wow. So you were like, I'll just take the test. And then from there, they're like, you seem to have enough right answers that maybe you'd be good on Jeopardy. Because that's kind of game shows want people to look good. There's reasons they do these things.
Yeah. I mean, they do too. So the online test is like a 50 question test. And now if anyone is listening and wants to get on the show, that you can take the test anytime. It used to be like twice a year. And now they have this new system where you can just log onto the website and take the test.
Oh, wow.
So, but I took the test. It's a 50 question test. You have like 15 seconds per question, give or take.
Okay.
And based on, it's not just the number that you get right, but they also want to see that you get enough right across enough subjects, right?
Yeah,
so,
like a variety so that.
Right. So it's not necessarily a raw number, they say.
Okay.
It's very opaque, that process. So then months and months later, like I want to say 6 or 7 months later, I got an email inviting me to an in-person audition, which happened here in LA at the DoubleTree in Culver City, across from Dinah's, where Dinah's restaurant is.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So it was in that DoubleTree at like a meeting room. And so there they did another 50 question test. And that one, you only had 7 seconds for each question.
Oh, wow.
And then they do kind of a mock game and interview. And a lot of that is just to see if you can communicate, on your feet.
They need a personality and like.
Yeah. I mean, I think personality is a bonus. I think there's a lot of people that are not.
Jeopardy.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, wow, what a panel we've got today.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of people that are not ready for prime time, that are maybe really good at playing Jeopardy at home, but like the second someone's like, hey, so what are your hobbies? And it's like, well, I like constructing cryptic crosswords and cleaning taxidermy. And it's like, okay.
Oh,
okay.
You are terrifying. Do we have a serial killer? Good.
Yeah.
So funny. Yeah.
So, yeah. And a lot of people, it takes them a lot of auditions to get on the show.
Wow. wow. And you just
Yeah.
kind of went through the process and got on.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy to me to imagine just thinking of like die-hard Jeopardy people who are just want to get on so bad.
So bad. Yeah.
Especially the idea that like some of those people fly out here.
Well, they do the in-person auditions all over the country. So that's,
Okay.
and now, right now,
Okay,
they're
that makes more
doing the
sense.
in-person stuff over Zoom, obviously.
Oh, so that's way
But yeah, so like the contestant team, they shoot 2 weeks in like 2 weeks a week, right? So they shoot 10 episodes a week, give or take. They shoot 5 episodes a day, which a lot of people are surprised to learn.
Yeah, it's so I guess I'm just used to that, but like because I've had a specifically a game show person on this show, but and I've gone and been a guest on, like Let's Make a Deal and stuff like that. But they hammer them away. It's just crazy.
And sometimes like I've heard stories that like when there was the threat of the writer strike, sometimes they'll do like 6 shows a day to get more in the can if
before
they're like,
everyone leaves.
before so they can so they don't have to have a break. So so the contestant team though like flies all over the country and basically invites you to like the nearest one. So the LA one had people probably from San Diego to Santa Barbara or so, but then they'll do them in New York or Philly or Boston or Chicago and stuff like that.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah.
In your mind, did you think once you got to the point that you were on after having taken the quizzes and stuff, and they're like, we're going to put you on the show, were you like, I think I maybe could go really far on this? Or were you like, oh, I'm going to be on an episode. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was that. I was like, I just wanted to not be negative going into Final Jeopardy. So, because if you're negative going to Final Jeopardy, you don't get to play. And so I was like, I just want to make it to Final Jeopardy. Really, that was how I felt. And that was how my whole family, like when, I told them I was going on, that was kind of that was all of our wish, right? And really like the point, like I remember that moment when I buzzed in and Alex Trebek called my name and I said the right answer and he was like, correct. And I'm like, cool, everything's gravy after this. You know what I mean?
All
like,
right, I'm okay. I can do this.
I've climaxed and now it's all just sort of like.
You're like, oh, I did it. I got one right on TV. Did everyone see that?
Yeah, exactly. So but what I will say is that going into my first episode, there was a returning champion who had won a lot of money.
Ooh.
He had won 6 games. He had won $170,000. That's like very a high dollar in the pre-James era. That's a lot of money to win. Yeah. That's like $30,000 a day, roughly. And he was very intimidating, and
that just in general is intimidating. That like, and it's got to be like, oh, I get on the episode where there's this guy, like,
right? And also like he's basically guaranteed to be in the Tournament of Champions. So everyone, and I was selected to play him the first game of that day, and so I sat down in the makeup chair and I was like, so this guy's pretty good. And the makeup lady was like, yeah, he's good. And I was like, well, somebody's got to beat him. It might as well be me.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
And then I beat him.
And you're like, thank God, because that makes.
And it's true. I mean, like that's like the truth of Jeopardy. I mean, even if you win, they make you keep playing until you're a loser. We're all losers.
I mean, yeah, eventually we all lose. I feel like there's a good life lesson in that.
Yeah.
Like, things can go really well for you for a good chunk of time, but eventually
you will lose. You will lose. So
you have to be prepared for that.
Yes, exactly. So I went in, and really my first time on the show was sort of like, whoa, I did not expect any of this. So I was just having a ton of fun. I was much more prepared. I'd done more rigorous preparation for the Tournament of Champions, which I think, because I was just like, oh, I can't kind of like laugh my way, like sliding through some kind of like.
Yeah, tough. I can't just make funny comments on my to the top.
Which it worked the first time.
Because you did a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
Like you were doing like funny.
My Final Jeopardy, when I would have a runaway, I would just bet 0 and write kind of silly, kind of taunting messages to Alex Trebek.
Yes.
Because the thing, again, going back to like taping 5 shows in a day, it's exhausting. And they like make you go and change really quickly. And it's such an intense, I mean, it's like taking 5 final exams. There's 60 questions every show.
Wow, and
61
you're just
questions.
going back to back.
Back
Yeah,
to back.
I didn't even think, because that's like just how they film game shows, but I wasn't even thinking that in terms of, the contestants that are staying on. It's just like this
Exhausting.
long day or a few days or.
Yeah, there's a lot of fatigue. And also, even though there was a break in the airing, I taped my 10 shows like 2 consecutive days. You can imagine how much sleep I was getting that night after winning 5 games, then had to sleep and go back to the studio the next day.
I mean, my God. Yeah, because that the adrenaline from that, I'm sure.
Totally. And you're also like, the experience is so dense and fast that you're kind of trying to unpack it. You're like reliving things you got wrong that you should have known, or like things you wish you had done. Yeah. So
Idiot.
the whole betting zero thing was more about like, I'm just going to give myself a break, like 5 or 10 minutes where I don't have to think. I know that I'm not. And then I was like, oh, I got to answer something.
Yeah.
As well, kind of make it a joke, right?
Right.
I guess that's
that's fun. And that's just like, it just makes sense and kind of like good that you had that attitude of like, we're all like really tired here, right? So exhausting.
Right. And even like not playing, like watching from the audience, you're tense because you're like, you don't know if you're going to be up next, and you're kind of trying to like play along and see how well you would do. So the people who were like waiting to play me, I don't think it was, I mean, maybe it was less exhausting, but I don't think it was like they were just like kind of lounging around eating.
Chilling. Yeah. They're all like, I'm sure, just going like, oh, I know this. Let me get like, because it feels like a muscle, but at the end of the day, it's just all different answers. Did you do any type of prep? Like, do they give you?
They give you nothing.
Nothing.
They give you nothing. They give you, I don't have one here, but they give you a pen that has like a little red clicker that you can practice watching the show
Buzzing
and clicking
in.
it. Yeah. But so the first time I was going on the show, I did like kind of what everyone suggests you do, which is watch the show with a pen and practice buzzing in and answering correctly. And what I found was that really didn't prepare me very well for the experience of being on the show.
Wow.
First of all, most of the time we're watching the show at like 7:00, 7:30, at least in the afternoon. You're at the studio at 7 a.m. First show starts taping at like 9:30 or 10. Excuse me, sorry. We're taping like 5 shows in a row, as I said. You're on your feet. It's a totally different experience. And so when I was going back for the Tournament of Champions, I was like, how can I prepare myself not just to know all these answers, but also, or responses to in Jeopardy, right? Because they don't even call them questions and answers anymore. They call them clues and responses to be very,
So, I mean, Jeopardy.
But also like, how could I prepare myself for all the other aspects of the experience? So I would like study and practice at the time of day that the show taped. I would go to the gym and hang from a chin-up bar or hold a plank and have my trainer quiz me to recreate like when you're stressed and you can't come up, when you're stressed and you can't come up with the answer.
Because it's so much harder, like when you're sort of in that state of panic or like.
Exactly. So I was like, how can I recreate that state of panic? And
so you're just this guy in the gym, and if people don't know you, they're just like, yeah, that guy's just doing trivia while.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, luckily I go to like a very small gym. Okay. There's like 4 to 6 people there at any given time.
Okay.
But there was some like eyebrow raises when I'd be like pushing the sled, like listing off presidents. Like
they're like, what is this guy doing?
Are we allowed to do this now?
They're like, is that a thing?
Yeah. So yeah, and I started wearing the suit and tie every day because like that's what I was doing on the show, and I wanted that to be like effortless. Like, it's like,
yeah, you want to be comfortable while you're as comfortable as you can be. That
right,
makes sense.
At least make it familiar, right? Like you see it all the time. People like have a big day and they like go and they put on these clothes and shoes or whatever that they're not used to. And it's like they're putting themselves at a disadvantage. It's like they are trying to give the speech of their life in a language they don't speak.
Oh my God. This is so insightful because I'm just now imagining all the people who like, I'm thinking of like also myself if I ever were to get to on screen Jeopardy, but like that do all the auditions and the tests and they get there and then they're just like, oh God.
Yeah. I mean, like people
so
were like needed help like tying their ties and stuff like that. And I'm like, what an infantilizing experience. I mean, I some of them are my friends, and I'm sure some people it doesn't affect, but I knew for me, like, I wanted to feel good. I wanted it to all feel very natural and effortless, because all of that helps your brain, and it also kind of like intimidates people.
Yeah. That's, I mean, hello. And it intimidates people. So watch out, which also gives you an advantage because it fucks up their brain.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, how cool was Alex Trebek?
He was very cool. I mean, the first time I was on the show, I think he didn't know what to make of me, but I kind of feel like when I went back, like either a producer or his kids or someone was like, no, this is fun. This is cool. People on like Twitter and BuzzFeed are talking about this. Like, he kind of got into it more.
He's like, oh, okay. Because he was like,
yeah,
wait, no one's ever done that before.
Right. And then after me was my friend Austin, who was like even more off the wall than I am. And
Whoa.
so I looked very like tame and like
Sorry about that.
someone FaceTiming into this.
I know. I have a question. It's like, who the hell?
Yeah.
I put my phone on airplane, so calls are coming in. Anyway.
Yeah. So he was even crazier. So I looked very staid and.
Yeah. So you're like, okay, great. That's.
Yeah.
Wow. And okay. And that guy was just like a friend that you already had going.
No. We became friends.
Okay.
Because we taped in the same Tournament of Champions. We were in the finals together. And we kept in touch. And we both had a similar idea, which is like, this is a game show. This is fun. Like, obviously we want to win. Obviously we want to be right. But it's like, this doesn't really mean anything.
It's not like all we have. It's not the end of the world if we.
Yeah. God. And we like, for both of us, like having fun was a big part of our experience on the show. So it was very fun to play with him. And then we kind of dragged Alan along for the ride, who was the third person in our finals. And he got in on the act, funny. But he was like shaking the entire
super
time.
Serious. He's like, "Come on, guys."
No, we had lunch before the finals. Were 2 games, so they taped 3 shows in the morning, then we broke for lunch, and the 3 of us had to have lunch together because they didn't want us to be influenced by any other players.
Oh, interesting.
And we were like, okay, cool, let's do like synchronized the opening sequence thing, the 3 of us. And Austin and I were like, yeah, we were like really excited. And Alan's like, okay, I guess will we get in trouble? But then he got in on it, and he's the 3 of us are all good friends now. So.
Oh, that's so rad.
Yeah, but Trebek is cool. The thing that people don't realize is that what you see on TV is the extent of everybody's interaction with Trebek.
Yeah, it's like very hands off. It's not like,
it's
not hands off, but.
Part of it too is that he has already reviewed all of the games, right?
Oh, so it's like a conflict.
So they just don't want, if he reveals something accidentally, like he gets confused and thinks of, accidentally mentions something from a game that's happening later that day, then like they have to rewrite the question and it like becomes a whole thing. And so he's very nice, very kind, very generous, talks to the audience. I've been at enough tape days to know that he answers the same 5 questions of the audience members every single time.
Really? Wait, can you tell us what they are? Spare us, since we may never be in an audience again.
Yeah, so I'm trying, there's also there's the, how do you think you would do if you were on Jeopardy? And he's like, oh, I think I would do okay on most of the subjects, but I'm too slow. If they had a seniors version, I would do okay, but I'm not. The kids, this is literally like his speech. Like, the kids who grew up playing video games have a big advantage with their hand-eye coordination. That's his theory.
That's an interesting theory.
Yeah. And I actually had a USB buzzer that I used to use to practice, and it like recorded my reaction time for stuff.
Really? Man, I love that you were just full on like Iron Man training for this. Just like,
I was like, I'm an Olympic athlete. Like those Home Depot ads where people are like stocking shelves and then they're like rowing after work or whatever.
Yeah.
That was me.
Click. Doing trivia while you're running a marathon.
Exactly. Basically. He answers that question. People ask him what his favorite parody of himself is, and he says he likes the Eugene Levy version more than the Will Ferrell version.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then people always ask like who he thinks should be the next host. And he always says like, I think it should be a woman. And I think it should be someone who's young so that they can host for a long time. So I suggest Betty White.
Oh, he's fun. I
Yeah.
love
So
those little.
yeah. And I think he's a good sport because he does get asked the same thing over and over again.
Which I'm sure is exhausting. But he's like,
Yeah.
I love that he has fun answers, and that's
Yeah.
and that he's fun with the audience. That's cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it makes sense that they kind of like keep him away from me. I wonder if early on in that job he like messed up a couple times and he's like, I just got to stay away from the contestants. This is
I don't know. I wonder. Yeah. It's
the writers
possible.
Are like, come on, Alex.
We gotta write a whole new. It's like, hey, you're into American history? Just wait, something fun is coming up.
And they're like, son of
a whole category.
We have to write all those questions. Oh my God. What? I mean, that would be an interesting job, having to do the research and writing for Jeopardy. So much trivia.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of getting together with your two friends from Final Jeopardy and going to a pub trivia and just?
We've done it.
We've
done it a few times. Yeah.
Did you win?
No, we didn't. We go to, so there's a trivia night out here in Los Angeles called O'Brien's, and it's like 90% former Jeopardy contestants.
That's so funny.
And it's like known for being like the hardest trivia in the country. They claim it's like the hardest trivia night in the country.
Wow.
And so Austin and Alan and I played. The first time I think we finished third or fourth.
Oh man.
It's hard. Yeah. And also what I will say is like Jeopardy isn't really a trivia show. Jeopardy is a general knowledge show, right?
That's fair. Yeah, because some trivia nights get very like deep into specific topics.
Right. And so Jeopardy is asking questions, and this, like, I go into this a little bit in terms of like understanding how to prepare for Jeopardy. It's like they're not going to ask really obscure stuff because they want at least some part of the home audience to recognize it or know it. If it's like too arcane, people are just going to tune out.
Yeah, they want people in their seats playing along, which I think anyone listening who has watched Jeopardy knows that feeling of, oh, it's this.
Oh, and even if you don't know who wrote Moon for the Misbegotten, you've heard of Eugene O'Neill.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I was like, yeah, I haven't.
Totally. Gene!
But I live under a rock.
But that's the idea. There's some like recognition. So whereas like a trivia night, it can get extremely obscure.
Yeah,
and
or
so
like
it's
super
sort of
niche if they do it like theme or.
Yeah. So O'Brien's is general subject and they try to make it pretty even, but it can become very, like, I played last night for the first time in 6 months. And one of the questions was like, which definitely wasn't the hardest question of the night, but it was like, name the 5 vice presidents who succeeded, maybe not immediately, but became president without the president that they were VP for dying or resigning.
Wow.
Right? So like LBJ wouldn't count because JFK was assassinated.
Oh yeah, that's a thing, right? What if I didn't know that?
Yeah.
Wow,
So
I didn't even realize there were that many because
there's only 5, yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
You don't have to answer it, but you can see it's like a much different kind of question than Jeopardy would ask. Jeopardy would give you a lot more clues, and it's like, to me, like what I say is like Jeopardy like doesn't really get much past high school level material. It's just that none of us really retain all that stuff from high school.
Yeah, it's like all these facts that at some point we had. That's anytime I watch, there's a lot of like, oh man, I know that, but I don't.
Right.
I can't recall it.
Totally.
Wow, that's so. And you went? Did you? Are they doing trivia? Is it like a?
They're doing it on Zoom.
Okay, I was wondering. I'm like, are they doing outdoor trivia?
Yeah, no, they're doing it on Zoom.
That's.
But normally it's at O'Brien's Pub in Santa Monica.
Noted. Someday I'll go there.
And they have a very fun. If people are into movie trivia, listen, they have a great Oscar quiz that it's like incredibly hard, and there are people who come just to the Oscar quiz.
Oh wow, yeah, my boyfriend Andy, he would probably do well at that. He's got I didn't know until pandemic, but he has like an insane knowledge of Oscar specific trivia. He was like naming, that was the 1994 Oscar for, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
You just have all that in a vault up there? That's crazy.
Yeah, totally.
That's impressive. So did your Jeopardy experience sort of did it lead to the Audible originally?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So what happened was, so obviously I said I'd been going to the gym when I was getting ready for the Tournament of Champions, as I
Yeah.
alluded to. And what I saw was that, like, with this really kind of concerted and conscientious effort, I could make a huge improvement in my performance. Like,
Wow.
I played at a much higher level at the Tournament of Champions than I did during my initial run. And I just wanted to see what else I could do. So I walked into the gym like the week after I taped the Tournament of Champions, and I went to the trainer who had been quizzing me. I was like, "Hey, how long would it take you to train me to win a deadlift competition?"
Did
Having
he
never
laugh
done,
at you?
yes, because I had never done a deadlift before.
He's like, I saw you pant on a rowing machine.
Yeah,
Relax."
he's like, when you came in, you couldn't touch your toes, and you had a 20-inch neck. True story.
Oh my gosh. So,
Yeah.
but you were like, okay, I saw that specific effort yielded results. Let me put this into practice somewhere else and see.
Exactly.
So you
Exactly.
just started training. How long? I mean,
He said like I need like 8 or 9 months probably.
yeah. Were you like, okay, let's do it?
Yeah, and I signed up like a week later for a deadlift competition, and I ended up winning my weight class.
I mean, congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How often, when you're training for a deadlift competition, how often are you working out? Every day or every week?
I trained 4 days a week.
Okay.
And then I would there were like brief periods of time when my schedule permitted where I would do like 2 a days. So I would train 4 days a week, twice a day.
Oh my God. And you
Yeah.
just got like, were you jacked?
I was
were you
like
just-
strong, but I was not. I like, the problem is like a lot of the times, people want to cut weight, but I never really, like, usually what happens is your strength plateaus and you're like, okay, this is kind of where I can get to. And then you start like trying to keep the strength and cutting weight. And then
So
when
you're in like a lower weight class, but
exactly.
still just.
And I kind of never plateaued.
Hello, strong man.
Well, I also I had an injury that
Sure.
kind of messed up my training for a little bit. So anyway, so I like, you looking at me, I just kind of looked like a normal person. I
Yeah,
didn't
for
look
anyone
like the
who
Hulk.
can't see you, which is most people listening. Yeah, you look like just kind of like average.
Just a normal dude.
guy. Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
be like,
I
"Oh,
had
that
like,
guy lifts."
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I just had like very strong butt muscles, I guess.
That's
just
so funny. You're like, my butt got ripped.
My butt got ripped.
And what is that a thing that you like? Did you continue lifting, or were you just like, I just want to see?
Yeah, no, I mean, I kept going to the gym. I didn't want to do another strength
Deadlift.
competition. And I didn't want, I don't have the genetics for like a bodybuilding thing, but I just kept going because it was just part of my routine, and part of my more, I would say, mental health. And also
it makes such a difference.
Yeah. And I also kind of like making little challenges for myself. So like my trainer and I would just kind of make up dumb stuff to be like, okay, here's the new goal. And then I would
like
just
an
work
arbitrary, here's the not arbitrary, but like you'll just pick a
yeah, kind
some
of
type
like,
of goal to get.
I want to focus on like, keeping strength, but changing my body fat percentage or something like that, and like do a program for like 3 months focused on that.
So it sounds like you're really good, or maybe it's it's like a thing you're like really good at sticking to stuff then.
I am, yeah.
Yeah. Do you, and maybe I assume you maybe cover it in the book. Do you have any like generic advice for like someone who maybe has trouble sticking to? Like, does something help motivate you? Or are you just someone who can go, I'm going to do this, I'm doing it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think having like a specific, like time goal. So after the deadlifting thing, I decided that I wanted to learn how to do a specific tap dancing routine that was like tied to a date. Like it's without giving too much away, it's like the tap dancing routine is tied to a holiday.
Okay, so you're like, I want this to be completed by this time, so I can do it at this specific thing.
Exactly. And so I found a tap dancing instructor.
Had you ever tap danced?
I'd never tap danced. And she was like, this is really hard. Like, this isn't like 9 months. This is like a year or 2 and 9 months. And so I was like, okay.
But if I'm rigorous.
And I was like, okay, cool. Sounds good. No, and it's hard. Like, I was really having a hard time. But I started to get into it, and I started learning the routine like a little bit slower. I was like, I was getting into it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And then the pandemic happened, and like I can't practice tap dancing. She's giving lessons over Zoom, but like, would you want to live with someone who was like practicing tap dancing?
No, that's what I was just gonna say, is that like I don't know if you would survive that. I think your family would.
Yeah. So I took
put you on a stake and be like,
I took a pause. I took a pause from that. But yeah, I also like, I think I'm just kind of like, even though I think I'm a little bit irreverent, I'm also very good at following like rules.
Yeah.
And so like, I remember I used to do a lot of Buddhist meditation when I was younger, and
nice.
I would go on retreats, and everyone's like, how do you stay quiet for 2 weeks or whatever? I'm like, I don't know. It's just a rule. You just don't talk. Like, why do you have
you done Vipassanas?
I didn't do Vipassana. I used to go on Dzogchen retreats.
Oh, okay, cool. I did a Vipassana once, and everyone was the same thing. They're like, you can't shut up for 10 seconds. You're
like,
yeah, you're just not allowed to.
Yeah, it's like, how do you drive on the right side of the street? It's like, you just do it,
I'm not a lunatic. Wow. Do you think it helps to go, because that's like you going, oh, here's a competition I'm going to enter, or this is a specific routine. Do you think that maybe somehow having that specific like date with like the specific routine helps versus going, I just want to tap dance?
Exactly. For me, it does. Yeah. Like going, I just want to tap dance. It's too vague. And it's like, yeah, it's just, I like having like the really specific goal with a date. And even if you kind of don't get there or whatever, it's like, it brings things into focus, right? Like it's very rare that we kind of take on anything successfully that doesn't have some sort of specific goal or outcome attached to it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that personally, of all the things I like want to learn if I were to give myself a deadline. Because how many things have I finished in life, like, or any of us finished in life, just because we had a due date? And then
right. And I think it's also important because people set unrealistic deadlines. Like, I conferred with my coach before I figured out the deadlift competition. I spoke with the tap dancing teacher before I figured out what year I was going to try to finish the tap dancing.
Yeah, because you weren't just like, next week.
Yeah, because that's also unrealistic, and then you feel like a failure, and then you don't try stuff. It's like, figure out something that's realistic and, doable, and just say, okay, that's what I'm doing. And it might change a lot. Like with the routine, at one point, my teacher and I were thinking about changing what routine I was going to learn. Yeah. Because there's another one that we were kind of talking about. And she was just like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, but just why don't you stick with the one that you want to do, because who cares? You know what I mean? But like changing, like, en route is also okay. It's like, you just kind of got to get on the road.
That's so real. Like just getting on. And then I want people to like go listen to your Audible. So I don't want to dig too much, because that's what it's called Get Ready.
Yeah. So you asked like, what prompted the book? So basically I did all these preparation things, and I realized like, oh, this stuff is really applicable to tons of different people in tons of different situations. Like a lot of the examples I use are like job interviews, dating, giving speeches at weddings. Wow. Like all these things that people have to do, and they kind of know that they need to prepare for them, but they kind of do like what I did the first time I was on Jeopardy, right? Like you have to give a speech at the wedding, you write it, you like maybe read it to your significant other or boyfriend or girlfriend once or twice, maybe, and then you're like, in the mirror, and you're like, okay. And then you get up there and it's like, why did that not go the way I wanted it to? Or presentation for work. I mean, sometimes they go well. I'm not saying that everyone is up there bombing, but
we've all been a victim of minimal self-preparation, where you go like,
exactly,
I could have spent a little more time on that, and I just it's enough.
And I think that also people, even if they know they should spend time on it, they don't always know how to spend effective time on it. So what the book does is kind of create some ways to start to look at what you have to do and to figure out, okay, here's the best way to prepare for it. So for instance, I have a chapter on props, and this is something that people fuck up all the time. Like they, are going to give a presentation at work and like their computer's got all these windows up, or like it doesn't connect well. They go to give a speech at a wedding and they've got like the wine glass and the cards and it's all like fumbly, and they have a microphone. It's like spend 10 minutes, think about what you're going to have to do, and just kind of get ready for that.
Wow, that's so smart. And like, especially because you've had that experience of like practicing with a buzzer, and people don't think about.
Yeah,
it's so easy to theoretically be giving a speech, but then it's like, I'm sitting on my butt on a couch just reading it.
Exactly. And standing up is a great one. Like for work presentations, are you standing up or are you sitting down? You're going to communicate really differently with your body in those positions. So maybe practice both ways.
Yeah, and like see what is going to convey the best kind of.
Or just get ready for both of them, because you might like be planning on standing up, but the room isn't conducive to it.
There's just no chairs.
Yeah,
like, what are you gonna? I'll just sit on the floor. It's fine.
let's get a little crisscross applesauce going on here. Even what was I going? Oh, interruptions are a big thing that happen in speeches, in presentations and stuff, and people like a lot of times don't know how to get back into it, right?
Yeah, they can't recover. I mean, as a stand-up comedian, I've seen it on several occasions just in my workplace.
Exactly. So I'm like, hey, shuffle up your speech and like pick a random place, and can you start from there? Like when I was a young concert pianist, my piano teacher would pick like
random. You've done everything.
My piano teacher would be like, all right, start from the top of page 9.
Yeah, instead of take it all the way from the top.
Exactly, because you might fuck up in page 8 or in the middle of page 9. Okay, I don't like, are you going to start? You can't start over from the beginning. So you practice starting from these like various places.
Wow, that's like, you're feeding me information that I'm like, these are things I need to apply. Because I'm very big about like, take it from the top. And it's like, you can't do that if you fuck up in the middle of a musical. You can't be like, can we all stop and start the number over?
Or like, someone has to like gets pulled out for a call. It's like, how far back do you need to go for them to know what's going on?
Yeah.
So there's just these little things. Yeah, there are these little things that I kind of, and by the way, it's not just my experience. I interviewed a competitive coffee brewer, a glass blower,
I didn't even know that was a thing. Competitive coffee brewing. It makes sense. But wow.
A U.S. attorney who was on Robert Mueller's team.
What?
I like all these people. I interviewed a guy who I worked with who was the chief creative officer who used to present work to Steve Jobs every week. And when he was like 48 years old, he started taking improv classes just to get like better at like
communicating and being on his feet.
Communicating, being on his feet, like listening and not being defensive, and like learning how to work with, and it like transformed like his life.
Wow. I always hear about the like improv for like corporate stuff.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear about someone who actually it helped, because I'm sure it's very helpful. I just always, I've done improv.
He brought the teachers from the school that he went to into the office and did like an on-site off-site for like half a day where we did like yes and games.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
we're team building.
Yeah, but I think he just saw how like he said like most people in a conversation, it was his marriage therapist or whatever, his couples counselor who suggested it, because he's like, most people in a couple or in any situation are just waiting for the person to finish talking and then say what they want to say
instead of actively listening.
Exactly. And so he's like, and so they suggested, well, and you can think about it in the workplace too. Like if you're presenting creative ideas, how much better is the work going to be if you're actually listening to what people are saying instead of coming in being like, this is what I want to hear, and I'm going to wait for them to finish and then show them how it's not what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. And it's so true. And it's also just, I'm thinking it from like comedy writing standpoint, but like if you learn to actively listen, you can avoid a lot of repetitive time wasting and stuff like that. Cause the amount of times that like I've seen someone, it's either happened to me or I've seen someone do it where they'll be like, here's a great idea. And it's like, yeah, you just repeated my idea.
Yeah.
I bet
they were a man.
said that.
I bet they were a man.
Yeah, I've had women do it too.
Okay.
I don't when people go like men always, and I'm like people who don't listen, like, and maybe
People, yeah, it's true.
men are
People
listening,
in general don't listen.
but like and I shouldn't say that, like all the
But
feminists
women
are
also
like,
don't listen.
it's like, yeah,
I just
hey,
did it
and
to you.
that's feminism.
No,
That's
I just did it. I
equality.
was
Is
no.
that we have also
That's the
suffered.
pull. That's the pull quote for you that
Yeah,
you
that's
post
all I
on this
put.
interview. Yeah,
Get
Buzzy
him.
Cohen.
Buzzy Cohen hates
So
women.
yeah, the whole thing was kind of, and as you can tell, I have a pretty eclectic interest, and I didn't want to write a book for people that's like, when the Olympic cycling team prepares for blah blah blah. It's like, we've read those books, we've read the chess masters, we've read the concert violinists. So I was like, who are some interesting, unexpected people that could shed light on this, that, excuse me, that like could also be fun to learn about.
Yeah, I think that's great. Finding these people that we haven't really heard from that have interesting perspectives.
Yeah.
And
The glass blower that I interviewed is this guy, Alex Rosenberg. He was on Blown Away. I don't know if you watched that Netflix show.
I'm going to now.
Yeah, it's like those cooking competition shows, but it's glass blowing. Yeah.
Man, they can make a competition out of anything. That's crazy.
Yeah, and he was like, it's actually it kind of makes more sense for glass blowing, because glass blowing like does have time constraints and weird pressure because like of the material, and also it's expensive to like rent time in a glass blowing studio.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I've got 4 hours to finish this piece. I better like, whereas like a cooking show, it's all sort of arbitrary. It's like you have
just like 30 minutes. And you're
yeah.
Like, okay.
This is impossible.
Yeah. Well, it's just, it is interesting to see like a visual or sort of physical art form in that
right
way. Where, not to shit on people who I'm sure cooking is their art.
No, it's cool. Yeah, I'm into it. But anyway, so he was like, okay, he's a very smart guy. He like went to RISD, he went to MIT, he like very good glass blower. And he's like, all right, instead of trying to make something huge that's going to break, that might, if it breaks, I'm fucked. I'm going to make something kind of like smaller or medium size, and I'll make 3 of them. And then I'll get to choose the best one. Or if one of them breaks, I've got backups. And it's just like that mentality. If we all did that for everything in our life,
Imagine.
I
mean, truly going, I have some variety. Wow. Instead of trying to be like, this is
the one.
Yeah. I'm putting all my eggs in this basket. And then you're like, the basket caught fire. And
yeah.
Hooray 2020 or whatever. Yeah. Wow. That is fascinating. And so is it just in audio format? Yeah.
So when I wrote this is my first time writing anything longer than an email since I've been in college. Wow. And I put together a proposal, which was like 10,000 words. And then, Audible basically won the auction for the proposal.
They were like, we want it exclusively.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Audible is an Amazon company. And so they're also doing a lot of exclusive content the way Amazon is.
Yeah, they were doing, I think they're doing sort of like series and stuff too. I have another friend who something that he I think originally wrote as a television pilot.
Right. And they're buying stuff and doing like multi-voice kind of like dramatic stuff, like radio plays kind of.
I want to be doing radio plays for Audible. That's incredible. So when you originally started it, were you thinking, oh, it will probably be a physical book, and then you're like, oh shit, Audible?
Yeah. I just wrote it like I was writing a book. And again, going back to like understanding what you actually have to do, my editor at Audible was great. And she was like, this is all written very writerly, like the way people would read a book. You have to think about this as someone listening, and you
like
use
more conversational kind of.
More conversational, and also like in a book, you introduce an anecdote, you kind of analyze it, you go into maybe some of the theory or whatever you want to call it behind it, and then you go back to the anecdote, right? That's kind of how you would do something like this. She's like, yeah, but if you're lost, you can flip back a few pages and be reminded of what the anecdote is. Whereas in audiobooks, it's harder to do that. So she's like, just kind of block it out, like do the whole anecdote, do the whole like analysis thing. Don't kind of go back and forth the way you would in a written book.
That's great that you had someone to advise on that, because there have been so many books that I've gotten on Audible because I have just like the monthly membership,
Yeah.
and they're originally like books you know read, and
Yeah.
and I do a lot of nonfiction learning type of stuff. So there'll be
Right.
all of a sudden it's like there's a self-assessment or there's like
Right. Yeah.
stuff that I'm like I
Hold
want to
on.
bookmark this, like.
Yeah.
So that's great that that you sort of formulated it specifically for that
And
format.
and it also helped me a lot because I had certainly some like imposter syndrome, because there are people who have like PhDs in performance and stuff like that, and performance sciences and psychology that I'm like, well, should they write this book? But because it was my voice reading it, it kind of made it easier for it to be like, yeah, this is my point of view. This is my experience. I talked to some people. I found some interesting stuff, and now I'm just sharing it. It's not like black and white book that
I'm the foremost
Library
expert
of
on
Congress
preparation.
number or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine that's helpful, because I think so many people, imposter syndrome creeps up, and especially when all of a sudden you're presented with making a book that's supposed to be informative, then you're going, are people going to go, well, who the fuck are you?
Yeah, exactly.
But then, having that format of it clearly being, hey, this is just my thoughts, some stuff I picked up along the way. I wanted to share
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah,
great.
exactly. Yeah.
That's great. From the point of going, maybe I should turn what I've learned into a book or something to help people, to like it being done. How long was that process? Like, did you go, I want to make a book, and immediately get to preparation the way that you do with things?
No. So what happened was actually somebody heard me on a podcast. I was on a podcast like right after the Tournament of Champions aired, give or take. So that was like 2017, maybe early 2018.
Nice.
And they were a literary agent, and we had some mutual friends, so they could like find me.
You. Nice.
And just said like, hey, I heard you on this podcast. Have you ever thought about writing a book? And I said, of course.
Haven't we all?
Yeah.
Thought about it?
And at the time, it was like I was in preparation for the deadlifting meet, right? Because that happened right afterwards. And I had spoken with a documentary director. I was like,
wow.
About like, do you want to like, or like we were talking about doing. And he was like, I think what's more interesting than you training for this deadlifting competition is that you're like kind of like a nut bar. It's like what my 13-year-old self would say. You're kind of a nut about like this whole like preparation thing. And like, you've kind of like in a life hacker kind of way, you like try to like find these really effective things. And he's like, I think that's more interesting. So we decided not to do a documentary because watching someone deadlift is incredibly boring.
I mean, you'd be surprised how many people watch those videos, though. I'm like, what do we?
Well, I only like the ones where the guys deadlift and like their noses start bleeding.
Like, and I was just always watching those, like, and you like choose to do this for pleasure, like that's.
Or like the vomiting, like they like do like a heavy one and they just like throw up.
Oh.
But yeah, so I spoke with this agent about a number of different ideas, that being one of them. And she's like, I think that one's really interesting. And then she worked with me on developing that proposal.
That's amazing.
So I like made a table of contents. I wrote an author letter. I wrote a chapter. The table of contents had about a paragraph about what each chapter would cover, talked about some of the people I would interview, talked about some other books that are kind of in the space and how mine is different, stuff like that.
Oh, cool. So the table of contents was actually sort of like the pitch almost.
For each chapter.
Here's what will be in the chapter.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. It's interesting to kind of get a peek behind the curtain of what a proposal might look like. And
I think, I don't think that's how every book gets sold. I don't know, but that's.
No, I mean, I wouldn't have any idea, but it seems like any industry that is like a creative or art adjacent, it seems like a lot of the stories are like, yeah, it's crazy how it just happened. This person found me, or, nowadays there's so much self-publishing, but everyone I know who has had like a book deal or something, it's been this random coincidence of someone who happens to work there comes across them and is like, have you?
Or you're a journalist, right? And you've got like a beat and you kind of like,
you have your thing that you're already an expert in. And Yeah, absolutely. Um,
So yeah, that's how the Audible thing, and then like I had to record it, right? So I was like, I did a lot of preparation for that. That was a really exhausting process too.
yeah, did you do a lot of vocal warm-ups every time you read? Were you like,
No, no,
like, absolutely
no,
not.
but you know, they're really good at it. So I would like, you know, they want you to read slower. They want you, you know, just,
Did you
but
go into
also,
like a studio?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I decided Audible has their own studios at their offices in Newark, New Jersey. And so
nice.
you know, this is right before the whole COVID thing. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll go out there. And then I got to like meet some of the marketing people and shoot some behind the scenes stuff. And they did like
Awesome.
a promo interview and stuff like that. So yeah, I decided to do that. And it was a very cool experience. And I learned a lot. And I
Wow.
prepared for that too, because I would like, again, I would record from like 9 or 10 in the morning till, you know, 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And I was like wrecked.
That is draining.
Yeah. I mean, we took
Wow.
breaks, we took lunch breaks, we took whatever kinds of, you know, whatever, but it's still, most of us aren't like focused for that much time.
I mean, yeah, that's a very like specific focus, and your
Yeah.
voice really is like a tool that it can get like exhausted.
Yeah. I mean, and as you probably learned on your Vipassana retreat, like you don't realize how much energy you expend out your mouth just talking about nothing all the time until you
Yeah.
stop doing it and you're like, oh, wow, that is exhausting.
Yeah.
Just like saying, hey, what's up? How are you? Da 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 da.
Oh yeah,
To
coming out of
everyone.
those, I don't know the last time you did a silent retreat, if it's been a while, but like that first few days of like interacting, it was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like as I turned on, and it was, you know, I have a cell phone because it was in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Last couple, like they haven't been around forever, but they haven't. But uh, yeah, just turning it on and like a couple notifications coming in was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh God, communication is a lot.
Yeah. And my experience was that like some retreats were better at helping you reintegrate than others too.
Oh yeah,
So,
this one was just like, all right, bye, and you're like,
yeah. Like a lot of times they'll have like a half day. Some of them would have like a half day at the end where people start talking again.
yeah. Well, I guess we did that. I shouldn't
Yeah.
totally like throw them under the bus. Whereas like,
Yeah.
as soon as they're like, you're all allowed to speak, the room exploded with
Really?
like, oh my God, that was crazy, right? Because
Yeah.
there's like, they had separated men and women, so it was just all women like
Oh, that's interesting.
immediately just buzzing, which was so funny. Because I was like, oh, I wasn't ready for like an explosion of noise. I thought we'd all be
Yeah.
like, hey.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because some people really want to like be like, blah, 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 and other people like really don't.
Yeah,
It's
that
interesting.
you're like, I want to just, I'm still processing. Or
Yeah. Ease out, ease into the bath, you know?
wow. So I mean, it sounds like you got everything done just in the nick of time, which is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had to do pickups like right in the first week that we were all in lockdown, and I like basically like went to a studio with like a mask and gloves and like just didn't touch anything and like got in and out of there and like as fast as I could.
Wow, that's what a time. And so you were also working on the tap dancing. Let me just ask you this, since like on the topic of the pandemic coming up, do you have any like little bit of advice that maybe like you've learned since, you know, you've had to slow down on the tap dancing thing of like,
Yeah,
when
I mean,
things
I'm
don't
not.
go the way you plan, when you get like a big bump in the road?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not tap dancing. I'm not I haven't been to the gym in 6 months, which is like that's you know the longest I've gone in like 4 years. You know, without going to the
Wow.
gym. I got when I was in like right before the Tournament of Champions, I got Lyme disease, so I took a break then.
Oh
But
no,
yeah,
that sucks, man. It's hard.
yeah, I got a whole great story about that, but I'll spare you.
I have an autoimmune thing too, and it's like
Yeah.
it can be a nightmare.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is the longest I've gone without that. And I don't know that I've really figured it out, but I have taken up, I'm learning bossa nova guitar now. So
Wow.
so I take a Zoom lesson once a week. And it's something.
Yeah. So it's kind of like at this point, when there are things like when you cannot do the things you're used to, it's like, all right, well, let's find something.
Yeah. I think I like having,
enjoy.
yeah, I think having like anchoring kind of stuff like therapy and
I mean,
like something that's
that.
for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a learning thing. I'm working on a new project, and I don't know if it'll turn into a book or what, but I'm working with a friend of mine on a project about hobbies.
Wow.
Obviously that's like a big thing that I spend a lot of time on, right?
Yeah.
And just how few people have hobbies. And I think that the pandemic kind of showed that, right? Like all of a sudden we were stuck alone, and everyone's like, what do I do? And everyone started doing puzzles, started baking bread, and all of these things, like looking for something. And it kind of made me realize something that I've seen as like a looming crisis, which is like, I look at my parents' generation, and they've just retired, and they play golf. My dad's a woodworker. My mom knits. She plays bridge. And I look at like my friends. I'm like, what are all these people going to do if they can retire when they retire?
So what are you gonna just like stare at your phone all day? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Like the number one hobby among millennials is watching TV and
That's
movies.
sad.
And so I'm kind of working on this project to encourage people to find hobbies and help them understand how to get the most out of a hobby. Because I think the other piece that really hinders people from hobbies is kind of the performative aspect of social media, and also the side hustle mentality.
Of like,
So,
I have to make this a thing I'm good at, or like that's
yeah, A, having to make it a thing you're good at, or B, trying to turn your hobby into a business. And it's like, that destroys it, right? It's like,
yeah, it takes all the fun out of it. I can guarantee that to anyone listening as a professional comedian. It will
yeah.
destroy the thing you love.
And I think, I read this book like a few years ago called So Good They Can't Ignore You by this guy, Cal Newport.
Yeah.
And it's about how basically the passion hypothesis of career advice, which is whatever you're passionate about, turn that into your job. Which a lot of people are like, oh, I'm unhappy in my like corporate gig. I'm going to become a yoga instructor because I love doing that, or whatever it is, and how that so often fails people.
Yeah.
And so he provides this other hypothesis, which everyone can read in the book. But it made me think like, okay, so what do we do with our passions? And the answer for me is hobbies, right?
Yeah, it's like just enjoying them for what they
Yeah,
are.
and what a revolutionary act it is to do something that isn't productive, that just is for joy. Like that is,
I mean,
truly a revolutionary act. And I'm like, so this is my new thing that as you can tell, it's on my mind because I'm doing a lot of research and I'm writing about it. And so I think like finding hobbies is really grounding for people, right? It's like we're so disconnected, and yet whatever that hobby is, and I think we have this idea, right, of like hobbies as often being expensive or time consuming, like kiteboarding and golf and whatever. And it's like, it could be bird watching, it could be hiking, it could be there's so many, hobbying is so vast, and there's so many different worlds of it. Like my daughter got a map and is collecting the state quarters and putting them on the map. Like that's collecting.
That's great.
And it's like, it's like every time a quarter comes in the house, she's excited, she's checking it out, and she's like, I already have, just these little things that, I don't know, there's no value beyond the joy it creates.
Yeah, but it's like, you just doing something because you enjoy doing it, and being okay with the fact that that is the end line.
Right. And not having it be like a performative, I'm great at it, or even the like performative, like, look what I'm learning.
Yeah, that's
right?
like, you can also do something and nobody know about it.
Yeah, nobody knew I was training for the deadlift competition until
you ripped your pants in the office
until
taking a seat.
Until I posted the like me with the medal picture.
And they're like, wait, what? Which I almost think that's more exciting, that you're like,
yeah.
Oh, by the way, just like,
yeah.
So yeah, I do think that's a thing where people feel this. I definitely feel this pressure of like, oh, I'm enjoying painting.
Check it out.
Do I need to be good enough to like post a picture to show you that I'm painting?
Right.
Or like,
and it's
if
also,
I show it once, is someone going to check in and be like, how's the painting going? And
right.
Like, oh, I'm still really bad at it.
Right. And I think it's also interesting too, how we have different like barometers for what it means to have something as a hobby. Like a lot of people who do music, for example, like learn how to play a piece, right? They're not composing stuff, but if you're painting, somehow paint by numbers is like looked down upon, whereas people want you to be kind of creating something. And
yeah,
it's
but
like,
you're like,
why?
It's the same thing.
It's like, it's the paint by numbers and, like playing a piece of sheet music are kind of analogous, right?
Yeah.
So why can't that? If you enjoy that, why do it? Yeah.
Like, leave me alone. I'm not trying to be the next, like, the prince of painting.
And I think there's all these. I mean, I have all these other reasons that I think hobbying has fallen to the wayside. But I think I would. And the other thing is, think about how much time we have now. We're not commuting. We're not.
Yeah.
We're not stuck at the office where our downtime is sort of owned by the company, just
The
by us.
company we work for. Yeah. Oh, I think we just
I'm.
as a. Sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm at home, and if I have a half hour, I'll pick up the guitar and practice, or I'll, do something with one of my other hobbies that I enjoy. And it's so much easier to do that, right? Because we can surround ourselves with these things and kind
Yeah,
of
they're
pop
so
in and out of them.
accessible. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't bring your guitar to the office. They'll be like,
This
Come on,
is an Arby's.
yeah, get back in the drive-through window, Bill. We've got time limits to keep.